Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. You know, one of the problems we all face in the CNC industry is trying to come up with product ideas that make us stand out. And no, I'm not advocating making close the gate signs as you've seen here, even though there's millions of gates that all need closing around the world. No, that's just to get a seed to get you thinking. So in this video, I hope it sparks some ideas using this well-known process. I did record a proper intro to the video, but it was totally crap, so I'm just going to go with a voiceover this time. Now, many of you may also be like me and for one reason or another not be able to powder coat or have a service nearby that you can utilise competitively. So this is my take on the world of the common wood items that have saturated the market since the sub $300 lasers came out. It seems these days everyone and their grandma is making stuff and selling it from lasers. And let's be honest, it's no longer even a side hustle, you couldn't even call it a hobby business. And 3D printing appears to be going the same way. So switching to aluminium, once you start to think about it, you can begin to create many items that can be just as attractive that others can't do. Now I've left the sound off in the background of the machine as I talk. I did even forget to turn the flipping blower off when I was doing the filling, but you know what they sound like, so you just have to listen to me and any music I add in the interim anyway. Now the cool thing is, you don't need any fancy aluminium for this. I regularly use pure aluminium, or 1050 grade as it's called, but I'm equally aware many of you struggle to cut this. I do have a video explaining how easy it is to cut and how wonderful it is to cut, if you want to go ahead and watch that with the right tool. The reason I use 1050 is it stays the shiniest longest, it's the slowest to oxidize and therefore gives a lovely product when it's out in the wild. But I also use a marine grade or 5000 series an awful lot. It's a great happy medium, it's fantastic to cut, and it's perfect for any outdoor environment. So that could be a suitable alternative if you can't get the 1050 to work. Now I also use a lot of the 3mm thickness, or 1/8 inch in old school, for items that are firmly fixed in place. But you don't need to be extra strong. You know, if it's an internal sign or a small item, you can get away with a thinner metal. This particular sign making here is roughly 400mm long, about 18 inches, by 75mm, about 3 inches. And 3mm is plenty for this, though I do also make this version in 5. I often use 5mm, it's a great happy medium, but depending on the product I can and do use thicknesses up to 10mm for these style of items. Because the effect we're creating is a fake cast aluminium product. It doesn't have to be a sign, it just has to resemble something that's typically made by casting. See, casting is a long, costly, messy process in comparison to a CNC, so we already have a competitive advantage. We have more flexibility with the CNC to get creative on the fonts and the designs and the layouts. It's far easier and far quicker than it is for the people who make the cast versions. Regardless of the thickness, the cool thing, unless the design really needs it, you don't have to go too deep on the engrave, and usually I go down at roughly 1.5 to 2mm. It's enough to create the effect I want. If the style requires it, I can and will go deeper. By the way, I'm John. I occasionally make videos that I think give you something different in the CNC world, so if you like this kind of thing, please give it a like and hit the subscribe. Many thanks. Now, unless you want to copy the style of how the woodworkers do it and saturate the metal, then sand or skim it back, which I would advise against, you need to take your time filling it back in. And it's an absolute pain, especially in winter when the epoxy doesn't flow as well, even if it's warmed up. With such a shallow cut, it does need help to spread because you can't puddle it quite as much. This epoxy is just regular 2-part stuff. It's UV safe. And if you want to test this on some small parts, just go out and buy one of those clear twin tube syringe type sets that you get from any hardware store. It's a great cost-effective way to try it out. And for colour, just raid the wife's nail varnish. Blame it on me if she catches you. I can take it. Regardless of the metal thickness, the cool thing, unless the design really needs it, you don't have to go that deep. So I would only go down, say 1.5 to 2 millimeters. It's enough to create the effect. And the epoxy, when it sets, gives the rigidity back to any material that you've removed. So if you are using a thinnish metal, it will give it that rigidity back. You obviously need to ensure there's enough colour or nail varnish to make it opaque when you apply it. Now what it is, you want to coat the background, but also help the epoxy touch up to the top of the letters, as we've got here, so it gives it a nice 3D effect, which I'll show you in some images later on. Now I do prefer to sand the sign before filling and be extra careful doing the fill. I've learnt the hard way that it can be a pain to sand it afterwards. And it is very hard on cold days. My shop has absolutely no heating at all. The alternative way is to flood the entire sign, as I say, and make the letters level. That does work. There are some products that suits very, very well. And again, I've made a version of this sign using that option. And finally, something I also do afterwards is I always coat it with an automotive clear lacquer. It isn't essential, it's just my opinion because it helps give it a nice sort of luster finish. Just my personal preference. The sort of thing you can make with this, just off the top of my head, I've made signs with it, as you can see, door numbers, pet memorials, Christmas ornaments. I started to look into those. I'm sure there's loads more. It's a case of just thinking outside the box and go and have some fun. And finally, here's some other items we've made and the alternative designs or styles for the film. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon. You take care.